Hey, Brandon here. This is channeled advice on the week ahead, and this is for the week of December 2nd through December 8th, Monday through Sunday. I have channel messages that I channeled through from my spirit guides, the angels, and source ahead of time for this. I'll be reading through, and I'll also be flowing with any additional channeled information that comes through while I'm reading through these, of course, from my spirit guides, the angels, and source. And I'll be working with my intuition on all of this as well. So let's get started here. Tiger spirit animal is showing up here, as well as like a solar plexus chakra kind of thing here, and it's definitely time to own your power and empower yourself is what I'm hearing. So there's this message that your personal power is huge. You really can influence the world and the world around you in really big ways. The energy you hold can do so. You have an ability to create reality with the beliefs you hold, with the ways you approach things, with your intention, with your asks. And it's time to own that power and wield it for the highest good, both for yourself and potentially the world as well. And like recognize you do have that power. And if you're neglecting that, you're kind of at the whim of life. You're not having the effect you can have. Okay. So do you need to study that somehow? Do you need to study how you create your reality or look up how to own your power or delve into books on owning your power or things like that? It's really time to potentially even step up in that regard, even if it's just for you and your personal world, and realizing what you can do to change things in the world at large, maybe, however, also just for you, so you can have the impact you came here to have. Beyond that, though, here, solar plexus chakra healing, there's the train outside, so there's confirmation. Could be big for this crowd in some ways. Maybe not all of you. I'm sure some of you are in a good place with this. However, it is a chakra that, for many in this crowd, maybe about half of you ish, it's potentially calling for your attention so you can own your power more. So, if you'd like a way to start with owning your power, maybe take a look at your solar plexus chakra. Is it balanced? How is that going? Okay. And if you're not sure how to do that, maybe it's time to learn. Sometimes when you have more skills, you have your knowing and intuition honed in, you have your manifesting potency, your abilities and skills with that honed in, you're a lot more in your power. Okay. So that could be a place to start potentially. So next thing here, there is a cricket jumping out of a cage. It reminds me of Mulan, the cartoon, to clarify. And it is time to free yourself from certain, if there are toxic situations going on, toxic situations, from certain situations that aren't serving you. If it's a job, maybe it's a job. And I'm not saying jump ship without a safety net or without a backup plan or anything like that. It's more like start looking at freeing yourself potentially if it's not time yet or you don't have a safe way to do so yet, is what I'd recommend, for you here. I'm not recommending you do anything unsafe. Freedom is a key theme. So, how can you get to more freedom? What is freedom to you? What does your life look like if you have that frequency of freedom running throughout? And can you start to move towards it? Is also kind of what I'm hearing. Mm, Now is not a good time to, well, you'll have to take this as it resonates. Now's not a good time to be caged, is what I'm hearing. So, how can you move yourself out of cages you might find yourself in, or move towards freeing yourself in a way that works for you? And if you feel like you're trapped at a job you don't like or something like that, I understand the dislike of that and the feeling stuck and things like that. Again, I'm not saying jump ship right away without something else lined up. Maybe it's time to look at different jobs or talk to friends if they have opportunities, or work on yourself in a certain way where you can start to attract a different job with greater ease in some way, shape, or form. If nothing else seems to be working. Okay. So things will shift. You're not stuck. It's time to look at what is freedom to you and moving towards freedom in some way, shape, or form. Next, here, I do feel like you are being set free, or like you will be sometime soon. So it could be this week, it could be sometime in the future, beyond this. So the universe is working on your behalf to help you. Beyond that, here, there is a message and a reminder of like the way being lit up. There's additional messages coming through. So there's the way being lit up, which came through for December. I believe it came through for November as well. It's just kind of in the air, probably for this time period where it's like next steps are, well, maybe not that right now. The path ahead is calling you, is what I'm hearing for this crowd. It's like there is a way being lit up, or the next steps will become more vibrant and they'll call to you louder, especially if you're ignoring them or somehow missing them. Like you're not going to miss it, is what I'm getting. Uh, at least probably you're not going to miss it because it's growing louder and it's impossible to miss. So you'd kind of have to intentionally miss it. So I wouldn't freak out about that message. Know that the path ahead is being lit up. There is a message about purification as well. There's like a crystal clear path that's like pure and like a purification happening and what I'm receiving. And just know that's happening. Like there's like an old world purge where you're releasing like the old world from yourself, your old life from yourself, even to make room for the new world that's birthing for you in your personal life and like the next phase of your life and the good things that are coming in. And it's meant to be all good. You know what that message is, going towards a better life, a better new world showing up for you in the future. And you are going to have to hold a little bit loosely with that here. I could get into super specifics, maybe if I were talking to like specific ones of you. However, I'm talking to a group. So if you're mad, I'm not sure if anyone was, but if you were mad that I wasn't giving you a super specific, like, what does that even mean? It's like, well, maybe chill a little bit and look at what's happening in your life. And that would probably tell you in some way, or look at what happens in a year from now. And then you could look back, or maybe even two, depending on how slowly things are moving for you. Um, I feel like it'll be faster than that though. And, then you tell me, what transpired that was the new world for you or something like that, because the new is coming is really what I'm getting for this crowd and potentially for the world. So you're going to see that ramp up and there is purification happening to let that in and make space for that. It's not a bad thing. Maybe be an allowance of it, be patient if it's happening. Know it's leading to better and even to better choices for you is what I'm getting. So they're like, let's move on to number one here. It's about peace. So there is an energy of peace that's going to start ramping up this week. Yay. Here's a reminder that your personal world is paramount right now. Focusing on yourself is paramount right now. For those that are working on themselves, peace will be much easier to find. Focus on cultivating peace in yourself for best results. So that's kind of a key. Well, I'll read this next part. Peace is coming in, and it's time to focus on peace even more. So, that's kind of this energy here that's coming in is what I'm getting. And you might be called to focus on peace more or to do more things that bring you peace, whatever that is. If that's yoga or that's meditating or it's channeling for yourself or it's energy healing or it's qigong or whatever it is, the more you're bringing that to you, the better the world's going to be. At least, especially for your personal world, though also the world at large potentially as well, because you're bringing more peace to the world when you bring peace to you. Um, the caveat might be, and maybe it doesn't apply in the same way, so maybe I don't really need to say this. Like if you start moving towards like your dreams or like leveling up your life or you're trying new things that don't, like you haven't done before, but it's something you really feel called to do. Like sometimes there isn't peace when you go to like create your dream life or take a big step towards that or try something new that's really exciting or it brings up nervousness or maybe there's like different things that kind of come up and like that's okay. It's not what this is talking about. Like if that's there because you're doing things like that, like perfect. That's great. Like creating your dream life has a great impact on the world as well for the better. So don't worry too much about that. However, for the rest of you, or if you're at a different place with all that, or maybe around that, if there's time and space around that for you, can you cultivate more peace for yourself? Bring that in, focus on the things that bring you that, and trust that as you make your world a better place, the world, well, what's the best way to say this? Up leveling your world is going to up level the world as well. So, number two here. So, there is like, let's see here. There's a falcon showing up for this, which wasn't what came through ahead of time. There's a message about things speeding up and like rapid change here, which is, I'm getting the rapid change. It seems like that's a message about the next kind of like while, anyways, that I've been hearing. However, it's honing in on the next 2 weeks for some reason. So I'd be kind of on the lookout for rapid shifts or change or just kind of things speeding up here, especially if your external world has been slow. I don't feel like it's going to be slow any longer, is what I'm hearing for those of you who felt that way. So, with Eagle here, this is just a reminder that a lot of new is starting to be birthed in your world, or the initiation of new things being birthed in your world is starting. You are going to potentially be forced to let go of some things this week. However, it will be the initiation to creating your best life yet. Don't be attached to things. Know that new is coming. So, maybe something leaves your world. It's just making space for the best thing yet, that's coming in. So it's not necessarily a bad thing that it's happening. It's just like, hey, this is for now, this is something that's happening so that new thing can come in. It doesn't have to be exactly that way. However, that's one way it could potentially show up. Just know that new is really on the way. That's kind of what Eagle Spirit Animal is showing up here and saying, I guess, with this one, and what my spirit guards are saying through the symbolism. There is a lot that's going to be birthed soon, is what I'm hearing. So, number three, this kind of also goes along with it, though also it could show up in different ways, is let go. What have you been really attached to that you're not letting go of? Sometimes letting go is the missing ingredient. Sometimes people are so overly focused on one thing that they're missing all the details. You are being called to give certain things space to breathe this week or even month and really let the universe play its cards for you. Will you let go? So let go of what's leaving, if anything's leaving, especially, if something new is going to be birthing and that's why things are leaving. Let go of pushing things that are taking a while if you've been trying to force things. Let go of things having to turn out a certain way if you're really attached to an outcome, like really in a certain specific way. So best results are coming, breakthroughs are coming. Hold faith, have faith, and trust the universe is what came through with that one here. So, mm, if you've been really gripping something tightly, maybe for some of you it's a relationship, or maybe for some of you it is a job situation, on maybe conversely to what came through earlier, for different ones of you. Mm, can you let go a little bit and let things breathe a little bit and let the universe work its magic for you and let the cards fall how they will, chips fall how they may, things like that. Mm, I feel like that's gonna help lead to best results, honestly, and sometimes if we hold things just loosely enough, like, again, things can move, things can breathe, the magic starts happening, and when we really contract and try to squeeze things into being a certain way and force things to be a certain way, and we're really trying to force things, it just doesn't work. So, can you allow the magic, allow things to flow a little bit, and just let go where you find yourself really, like, gripping things and trying to maybe overly control things as well. So I feel like that's going to be helpful this week. Number four, horse, spirit animal, and dark horse. So I did have to look up dark horse because I've heard that and read that places, and I just never bothered looking it up, and no one around me ever told me what it meant. So, they brought it through, so I'm like, I think I'll look it up so I know what's going on here with that phrase. And if you didn't know what it meant either, dark horse is pretty much like if someone wins a race that wasn't expected to win a race, or something political or something else entirely. The other meaning was ostensibly, from what showed up on Google, it the phrase came about from horse betting. If there was like a new and exciting horse that people didn't have a lot of information about, so it was like, oh, is it going to win, is it not going to win, how's it going to do? So that's sort of where that phrase came from, as far as what I saw. Anyways, the message that came through is change. Many of you will be unexpectedly winning in some way this week, whether it's big or small. Horse Spirit Animal is coming to say, hey, you can win in life. You can win in unexpected ways. You have wins ahead, and change is birthing to help you get there. So it kind of links in. I feel like 2, 3, 4 kind of like all spun into each other a little bit, or led into each other, which was really interesting. So there's a message about new being initiated. There's messages about letting go so that the new can come in. And so the things that need to leave can leave, or just if maybe you're just super hyper focused on something and it's, spinning you out a little bit, which I don't recommend, being super hyper focused on things in ways that aren't serving you. And with this one, it's saying like, hey, there are wins on the way, as things change. There are wins on the way that are unexpected, and like changes on the way, like we've kind of been talking about this whole time. So that's awesome. I think that's great. The last part here is receive the miracles, receive the wins, keep your head down, and keep moving. And I feel like they're saying that last part is key here, where it's like keep your head down and keep moving. I think some people stop during retrograde, like Mercury retrograde, and they try to like force things to stop because they're like, oh, I don't want to make a mistake or something like that. And it's okay to kind of keep moving and keep things flowing. If you were working on something before Mercury in retrograde, that's perfect. Even I'm a little bit hesitant on this one, so let me see what comes through here. It might even be okay to work on new things. I know that's not typically the recommendation. I would just trust your intuition first on everything, even if it seems to go against conventional wisdom, I guess you could say, or what most people would say, because your intuition is leading you down like your path in the best moves for you, even if it seems to go against the grain of what other people think or believe. So try not to go with conventional wisdom over your intuition is what I'd say in general. However, this is kind of saying like keep working, keep moving forward, one step in front of the other, even though it's a retrograde, and don't just stop because things are retrograding, I guess, if you're someone who worries about that stuff. And either way, I would just keep working on things and keep moving to the best of your ability, unless you like know you need to rest, or if you're sick or something. It's like, yes, okay, rest, like take care of yourself. In general, the energy is supporting you moving forward in some way, though, for some reason, or working on something. Number 5 here, anything else on Dark Horse? I mean, that's pretty much just saying like, "Hey, unexpected wins are coming in, changes coming in. You have wins ahead," which is great. Number 5, Dark Cloak, they just said, "The hidden comes to light. A lot of mysteries are being unveiled to you right now. A lot is coming to light for you. Your job is to see it, own it, acknowledge it, and move with truth. This is not a time to ignore what is true. When the light is shed, please remember that the light, or sorry, when the light is shed, please remember what the light has shown you. When hidden things come to light, please roll with it and trust it. There's a lot of truth coming to light. Be patient with yourself if you need to when truth is unveiled." And when what is true is unveiled, that does help us make the best moves for us, because again, we're operating based on truth, so we're making the best move, potentially the best moves for ourselves. When we are operating based on lies and what is not true, we kind of end up potentially sometimes screwing ourselves over, because we're taking this step and this step and this step and this step way over here based on like a lie that like, oh, this thing, I'm trying to think of like a specific example. I don't have one right off the top of my head, but you could kind of see how this is true. Like if you're operating based on a lie and you make this step, this step, this step, this step, like maybe you have a lie like, oh, this person I'm marrying, they're such a great person, they're so wonderful all the time, and if you like really paid attention, like you're totally lying to yourself. That's not necessarily true for all of you, this is just an example where it's like, you could see a lot of the traits and things that you just kind of swept under the rug because you just have this story and belief that they're so wonderful when you haven't really looked at it very clearly. And then like you take this step, this step, this step, get really deep into the relationship, and you're like, wait a second, this isn't wonderful and great. So, and I think sometimes people have hidden agendas. Like they're like, oh, I'd like to prove that I'm loved and valuable by getting married or something like that. Or it's just like, oh, are you sure that's the best reason to base being really just bringing this person into your life and like, going really deep with them and going into like a marital contract with them and really building a life with them and making them such a significant part of your life is just like, I'd like to validate myself. And if that's there, like, okay, you can acknowledge that, you can work with that. It's just like, is it possible there'd be something greater to build it off of for you? Like, oh, this person really contributes to and expands my life, and they're really bring a lot of light to my life. And oh, we really contribute to each other. We're very compatible and vibrationally compatible and things like that, and then it just makes everything better. It's like, okay, that seems like a pretty good reason to me, for me. It makes everything lighter. Great. So I didn't mean to get into that. I wasn't intending to talk about that specific example. However, if we are basing our choices on a lie, like maybe we have a lie like, oh, I'm doing this because this person is wonderful, we're getting married, but it's based on a hidden agenda of like, I'd like to validate myself, and you haven't really acknowledged or worked through that. That might not be helping you make the best choices. I'm not saying it's wrong. I'm not saying it's bad. I'm just saying, is that what you'd like to choose? You know? So, anyways, you kind of get the example. What I was originally trying to get to would be like if you had something you bought, or like this person's amazing, and then you didn't like really pay attention to them and like how they treated other people, and then you get to this deep relationship and then they don't treat you well because they weren't really amazing. That's kind of what I'm talking about. If you see the truth and you're like, oh, this person's really attractive, and I'd love to be validated and prove that I'm loved by getting married or whatever. And then you kind of see like if you really pay attention, you're like, oh, it feels heavy to make that step. Oh, that's interesting. I actually get a really weird twinge in my stomach when I talk about moving in with this person. Or oh, that yeah, I'm seeing how they're actually really judgmental towards other people and even towards me. I just didn't really want to acknowledge that. And oh, if you're moving based on that and you end up moving away from that with that person, it maybe certain people will change if you have a conversation. You're able to set boundaries. Maybe some people won't, and it's just better for both people if you separate in part ways, and you can find someone who actually does make your life greater. And then you're making choices based on what's true. And then, as you're choosing based on what is true with people who actually make your life greater, then you get into relationships that potentially serve you a lot more and you're in a much better spot. So, I don't think I needed to explain all that. I think I maybe over explained it a little bit and it probably was a bit self explanatory, though you kind of get it at this point. So, just know there are, let me see what they'd like me to say to wrap up this part here. Just know there is a lot coming to light. It's for your highest good. It's meant to make things better in the long run. If you need to be patient with yourself, if something a little bit more shocking happens to bring something to light, like, okay, take time for yourself, that just kind of know what's happening. Number six, unless there's something else we need to get to, so for some of you, you might be uncovering what's true and like light based on like intuitive information or channeling, or you're meditating and you get a bit of information about something or channeling through new information. So that's cool too. Even if you're discovering this or you're the one shedding light on things, that's great as well. You don't always have to like force it on others if they're not ready to hear you. You can trust your intuition and divine guidance on who you tell and what you tell them with anything, I guess. Beyond that, though, that's probably recommended to just kind of get to what's true, usually always. Because awareness is always probably going to help you and help you make things greater if you're operating based on awareness instead of moving in the dark. Number six, and what I don't mean by moving in the dark in that example is, moving in silence. It's okay if you don't tell people things you're doing. It's more just like don't move blindly is usually I'd usually recommend not moving blindly. Okay. Number six is money. They said if you are having trouble in this area, it's time to really go hard and focus on it. What are the books that will shift things? What are the videos you can watch? What are the things you need to read or give a shot? Things can shift for you. You don't have to live with difficulty all the time. Money is shifting. And just an FYI for this crowd, money is going to be shifting soon. So, money situations, how you guys relate to money potentially, how money shows up for you potentially. And this is meant to be a positive shift. So, I do get a message about positive money shifts on the way, whether it's this week or down the line, and this is like, hey, saying, hey, it's coming. Beyond that, though, can you investigate any money difficulties you have if you have them and really get under the hood and be like, what are there any beliefs that cause this? Are there any, choices I've made or keep choosing that cause this? Are there any things I can look at energy healing wise that could shift this? Are there any like books I can read, any courses I can take, any thing that would help me, any, whatever, YouTube stuff. It's just if you are having issues, you don't have to live that way is kind of what's coming through. Like there are ways to shift it. You're not necessarily stuck there, you know, potentially your whole life or anything like that, or you won't be. So what's the best way to say this? They're saying like if you feel stuck, you don't have to be stuck, is kind of what they're saying. And there are tools out there that can help you. I was listening to a podcast. It was like the School of Greatness. I think it was a money episode, actually. Funny enough, and one of the things that I think Lewis House is his name, podcast host. He was just like talking about how the answers are out there or the information's out there. Like there are books, there are courses, there are people, there are videos. There's something out there that you can look at that can help you shift things if you're willing to investigate or call it in, manifest it, seek them out, whatever it is, for you and your situation. So I wouldn't just like give up. I'd be like, what will it take is what I'd ask. Like for me, what will it take? And what will it take to happen with ease if possible? Thank you. So that's kind of it there. There's potentially one more thing they'd like to say before we start to close this out here. There's a treasure chest they're showing me. There's like lobsters around it. There's okay. So before we get into the treasure chest, they'd like me to talk about this thing called loser lobster. And that might sound silly, though there's something to it here before we get too far into it. It's something I actually originally heard from a friend who heard it from some either research or some book he read or something. And he had a podcast that he talked about this on, and it's about this concept of like lobsters when they like lose a fight, let's say. So lobsters are going around, they're screwing around the ocean floor. They're like, it's time to fight someone. And they go and I'm slightly joking. They go and they fight another lobster and they lose. All of a sudden, their body posture goes like, ooh, and they kind of hunker down and like, "Urgh," and it kind of closes down. And a lobster that loses is much more likely for other lobsters to come and like fight them and like try to beat them. It's also much less likely for that lobster, according to the people who did this research, to find a mate or for to be chosen for mating. And the lobsters that win, they kind of go like and they have like better posture and they have a more maybe dominating presence is maybe not the right word, but they have this like winning presence, and so they're less likely to have other lobsters come and fight them, and they're more likely to potentially be chosen for mates. I think the premise of what uh, my old friend was saying at that time was, what if it will be helpful if you have a certain like posture or body language that's like you're winning. And I know there are different like TED Talks I think I've seen on this where they'll talk about, or maybe different self-help books where they'll talk about like being in a victory kind of pose for like 2 minutes before you go on to do a job interview or go into work or do something, or whatever that looks like for you, whether it's just like hands on hips, like, yes, I am victorious, or maybe it's even like the yeah kind of thing, or something like that. So maybe that's something to play with and try or look up or something like that. However, it's kind of asking you like, I think I heard someone else talking about this recently too. Like, how do you present yourself? And like, do you present yourself like a winner? I'll talk about this actually, because there's like a lot of different things I could link in with. Uh, Again, I'm borrowing from Access Consciousness again to give credit where credit's due with that one. And they'll kind of talk about, and I've heard other people talk about this too. I've heard Lee Harris talk about this. I've heard it a couple places where it's like if you dress a certain way. So let's say you present yourself in a way where it's like, yes, I'm rich, and people judge you as having riches and being rich, I guess. That's more likely that actually moves the energy and moves things in a direction where you're more likely to be rich. Like it moves you towards having more money in a really interesting way. So if you're presenting yourself in a way where people are judging you a certain direction, that potentially helps you create more of the thing that they're judging you towards. I think I heard Lee Harris talk about this whole thing where there was like a theater exercise he did a long time ago, and people would wear different masks and they didn't know which mask it was. They weren't told what mask it was ahead of time. They weren't shown the mask. They were just given a random mask to wear. It was like the theatrical mask. So one with a big smile and one with a big sad face and one that was like angry and things like that. And like it was like 30 minutes they ran around this room or something with the masks on. And the people, even though they hadn't seen what masks they were, after about the certain amount of time, they started to act like whatever their mask was that the face was on, potentially because of the like projections and like just the reactions people had to them with the mask they were wearing. So if like there was the angry mask and they're like, and someone reacted like, all of a sudden like the person who's angry might start to get more like that, or someone who's sad has people recoiling a certain way or acting a certain way. They kind of start to be alone more and aloof in the room. If I remember, maybe that's not the exact responses those each had, but you kind of see the gist. And I'm just sharing the gist of the story, honestly. So I guess like the message kind of is, how can you be the winner lobster in more ways than one? Like maybe it's not just body language. Maybe it's also like what you wear, or maybe it's some of the things you buy and things like that. And I'll tell you, I'll give you this just to give you a certain leg up with it, because otherwise I feel like I'd be leaving you with just that, which could be helpful in and of itself. It's kind of probably best to approach it intuitively, where you're like, okay, if I buy this, is this something that's actually going to create the judgment of people being the judgment that I'm successful that others have on me? Sorry, I said that weird. So, for example, um, you can ask like an item you're about to buy, like, will you make me money if I buy you? And this is borrowing from Access. And if it says yes, and you intuitively get a yes, or however you operate, you get a yes, you're like, okay, you can buy that thing. It doesn't mean like super overspend, or it doesn't mean if you can't, if you're not at the place yet to afford like a mansion, let's say, not saying you won't get there, and you ask the mansion, like, will you make me money if I buy you? And it says yes. It doesn't mean buy that mansion when you're not yet at the place where it's maybe feasible to buy that mansion for you. It's you still kind of be within your means to a certain extent. It's just you can start to accumulate this energy and momentum towards, for in this example, you having money, for example, because you have all these things that will make you money if you buy them. And if it says no, then don't buy it, is usually what's recommended. So you can kind of do that with anything, clothes, items, whatever. But that could be one way to play with that intuitively, or start to kind of ask questions like, will this create the judgment of me being like successful, for example? Or will this create the judge? I know some of you might not like this. It might feel weird to some of you, but it's like it's happening anyways. So you might as well use it in your favor. People are going to judge you anyways. It's going to do whatever it's going to do. So you might as well get people's judgments going in the direction of your favor, right? Because otherwise, you're kind of if you find that's true and that doesn't impact things for you, if you're trying to go against it for some reason, you're kind of ignoring like how things are working and showing up. Like you're kind of ignoring what's happening, and that kind of maybe what's the best point to make here? It's probably not in your best interest to ignore how things are showing up or what's influencing things. It's not necessarily acting with consciousness or awareness to ignore this thing that's showing up because it's not how you want it to show up. I know we do have a certain influence over things and how things can show up. At the same time, like if something's unveiled as being true for you, probably a good idea to at least acknowledge that and heed it somehow, some way, intuitively. You guys get it. So that's it. There was a treasure chest. There is, let me see what the message is with the treasure chest here. There is treasure on the way, is what I'm hearing. For some of you, you are the treasure, and it's time to like own and acknowledge how valuable you are, and let that be something that shifts your world as you start to really play into that and value yourself more, and maybe show yourself you value yourself through the actions you take and how you take care of yourself, and giving to yourself through what you're doing, even if it's giving yourself exercise or giving yourself really nourishing food or whatever it is, and being willing to take some extra steps for yourself and care about yourself. It can move mountains for you. Mm, for others of you, there are gifts coming in, is what I'm hearing. So, unless there's anything else you'd like to add to everything, I hope that helped, resonated to whatever was for your highest good. So, they are just kind of adding in, like, they're showing this like bugle. Bugle might not be the right word. Cornucopia was the right word. Bugle is the instrument. The cornucopia is the the thing with that symbolizes abundance for many people. And I really do feel like there is abundance on the way in the future for this crowd. Like there is potentially more success on the way for taking action towards it and following your intuition. So I wouldn't give up right now. Um, when it comes to moving towards your best life, whatever it takes with all that, in an aligned way, in your integrity, for the highest good and things like that. So there's also treasure on the way. So that's great. In the week ahead and beyond, I feel like that's a long term one. So, okay, that's it. I hope that helped, resonated to whatever was for your highest good. If you'd ever like to go further with my work, brandonhbloom.com is great. You can go to brandonhbloom.com/store for full channel mode sessions, channel guided meditations, and other MP3s and channeled things like that. You can also go to the Let's Go Higher membership for a ton of channeled content, channeled lives with Q and channeled A, full channel mode sessions, channel guided meditations, certain exclusive channel content, deeper channel messages on the month ahead, potentially, than the ones on YouTube, or just more geared towards the members. So if any of that calls to you, again, brandonhbloom.com. And other than that, I am wishing you well on the week ahead.